Takamichi was an ugly, disgusting, worthless loser who wasted his life after his first girlfriend was killed and got bullied by kids every day as he barely afforded to pay his rent. However, when he realized he was going to die a virgin, a hand pushed him in front of Train-kun. But in his final moments, the only thing he thought about was his first love, Takamitchi and Hinata. As he regained consciousness, he saw a younger version of himself before a mirror, so when he checked the date on his phone, he realized that he had traveled 12 years into the past. But although he was glad to see his childhood friends once again, he remembered the events that occurred on this day. But before he could warn them, they were suddenly ambushed by a group of third-year thugs. The shortest face in the group tried telling the thugs that they were all friends with their leader Masaru, but one of the morons just laughed at his statement before ordering Masaru to buy some drinks for them. As the little bitch went to get them drinks, Takamichi's squad were almost beaten to death, and none of them were able to fight back. As his nose leaked out spaghetti sauce, Takamichi remembered how his entire life went downhill from that point, and he yelled out to the god of this world for making him relive such a terrible event. But for a brief moment, the image of his middle school girlfriend popped up in his memory, and Takamichi realized that her death in the future was caused by the same group of douchebags. So rather than following his friends back home, Takamichi rushed over to see her one last time. But when Hinata opened up the door, she became concerned about how jacked up his face was. And because he was used to being treated like shit all the time, Takamichi couldn't stop the tears from flowing out. But when he tried leaving quickly, Hinata held him back and said that he should open up to her about what happened. After crying his heart out to Hinata like a beta male, Takamichi went over to sulk about his life by the swing set. But he was interrupted by a group of kids who were trying to bully an innocent student. Pissed off by the consistent yelling, Takamichi got up and punched one of them in the face, before breaking an empty bottle and scaring the others away by threatening to tear their lungs out. When the bullies had left, Takamichi advised the kid to stand up for himself next time, and after they got talking, the student introduced himself as Hinata's younger brother Takabana Naoto. Remembering that Naoto was also dead in the future, Takamichi went back to sulking by the playground, and he confessed to Naoto that Hinata was the only girl he had ever loved in his entire life. Confused by this statement, Takamichi told him that he had managed to travel back in time after surviving a train accident, and for some reason, Naoto actually believed his creepy sci-fi story. However, he told Naoto to protect his sister by all means necessary, because in exactly 12 years from now, both him and Hinata would die after getting caught up in a deadly war. Naoto was shocked to hear this, but when the two of them shook hands to seal the promise, a time machine suddenly activated, and Takamichi woke up to find himself in a hospital room back at the present. He wondered if it had all been just a dream, but then he noticed that there were no bruises on his body, and a mysterious man in a gray suit walked up to him saying that he was Naoto. Takamichi was surprised to hear this, but Naoto said that he had taken his words on that day very seriously, forcing him to study hard and become a police officer in order to protect his family. However, despite saving Takamichi from the train accident, Naoto was unable to protect his sister from the school war, and he said that Takamichi was the only one capable of keeping her alive. Taking him back to his house, Naoto told Takamichi that his time travel powers were unique, because he was only able to travel back 12 years into the past from any given moment in the present. And to make sure that their plan to save Hinata was successful, Naoto forced Takamichi to stay up all night reading everything about the notorious Tokyo Manji gang. Noticing his reaction to the bloody image of a man on the computer, Naoto told Takamichi that the man was his former partner, who was brutally murdered after trying to infiltrate the gang's hideout. He also said that the only way to prevent Hinata from dying was for Takamichi to go back in time and stop the current leaders of the Tokyo Manji gang from ever meeting each other in the past. However, Takamichi didn't even know how to use his powers to begin with, so Naoto told him that the key to activating his time traveler sequence was for both of them to shake hands again. Although he thought that Naoto was a bit crazy, Takamichi was really desperate to save Hinata, so he grabbed his hand and got teleported into the past again, right in the middle of a fist fight. Shocked that the plan had actually worked, Takamichi checked the date on his phone to confirm, but he chickened out of the fight at the last minute, allowing his opponent to punch him into a coma. When he finally woke up, Takamichi got his ass kicked again for losing the match, which made him remember how he and his friends slaved away for the biker gang until they left middle school. But when the dumbass blurted out that he wanted to meet the actual leaders of their gang, one of the seniors, Kiyomasa, whacked Takamichi with a baseball bat until his eyes turned white. Kiyomasa warned him to never speak about their leaders again, and because Takamitchi was scared out of his fucking mind, he ran across the city looking like an escaped prisoner. Thinking that he was too useless to save Hinata, Takamitchi walked up to their house so that he could shake hands with Naoto and return to the present. But he ended up meeting Hinata instead, who called him an idiot for getting into another fight, saying that she should have been the guy in their relationship because Takamitchi was too much of a crybaby to protect himself. Carried away by the jokes, Takamitchi said that he could make her cry all night in her room like an African parent.
What did he say?
They kept on laughing until Takamitchi forgot the reason why he had visited in the first place, and he waved Hinata goodbye before returning home for the night. The next morning, Takamitchi met up with his friends in the male bathroom, where the leader of the crew Akon told them that the next fist fight was between Takuya and a student from another school. Everyone was shocked to hear this, because Takuya was the weakest guy in their group who couldn't even beat up a Hinata, and they were scared that he was going to get murdered in the arena. However, Akon said that there was nothing they could do to change it, and Takuya spoke up for himself, saying that he was going to avenge Takamitchi by defeating his opponent with a single punch. But by the time they had gotten to the fight zone, Takuya was already sweating and losing his nerve, and he was about to piss himself before the match actually started. Then out of nowhere, Takamitchi shouted for the fight to stop, and while everyone wondered what a damn rooster was doing in the arena, Takamitchi walked up to Kiyomasa and challenged him to a battle. Excited to put the punk in his place, Kiyomasa accepted the challenge and went straight for Takamitchi's gut, before beating him up until he staggered like a character from an action-based video game. Impressed by the kid's balls, Kiyomasa dropped his cancer stick to the ground and was ready to crush them. So as the crowd went wild with excitement, he kept on punching Takamitchi until the loser saw heaven's gates. Meanwhile, Akon brought out his pocket knife and was prepared to stab Kiyomasa with it. But before he could make a move, everyone noticed that Takamitchi was struggling to hold on despite all the beating. His friends tried telling him to tap out of the fight, but Takamitchi just stood his ground and said that he was going to win or die trying. So Kiyomasa replied saying that he was going to make sure of it. However, before anything crazy could happen, a tall man with blonde hair arrived to shut it down, and after observing his facial features, the guys quickly recognized him as Ken, the vice commander of the Tokyo Manji gang. They noticed a little nerd walking right behind him, and after everyone in the stadium bowed down to greet the midget, Takamitchi realized that he was Sano Mikey, the grand commander of the Tokyo Manji gang. Mikey walked past Kiyomasa and his crew like they were a bunch of worthless insects, before facing Takamitchi and telling him to become his new friend because of how he displayed passion on the battlefield. Takamitchi was shocked by his request, but Mikey didn't wait for a response and he went over to beat up Kiyomasa for starting the useless fight club, before walking out of the arena with Ken. Later that night, the guys praised Takamitchi for standing up to Kiyomasa and becoming Mikey's new bestie. But Takamitchi was worried that he had only just leveled up his errand boy rank. While the others were busy goofing around, Akon opened up to Takamitchi about how he had wanted to kill Kiyomasa during the match, and he thanked him for saving their asses from those biker freaks. On his way to school the next morning, Takamitchi was having a hard time keeping his eyes open. But when Hinata walked up to him, saying that they should go on a date later that day, the dumbass quickly became energized. While struggling to focus in class, Takamitchi heard a loud noise coming from outside, and he almost lost his mind when Mikey walked into the classroom, asking him to come and hang out with them. He also noticed that Ken had managed to single-handedly defeat all of the third-year students, and the vice commander asked the losers to lie down on the ground, before stepping on all of them like floor mats. Takamitchi tried telling them that he already had plans, but while everyone was surprised to see the leaders of the Tokyo Manji gang in their school, Hinata walked up to them and bitch-slapped Mikey in the face. Grabbing Takamitchi's hand, Hinata pulled him away from the bullies, but Ken held her back, saying that he was going to rip her useless arms off and use them to warm up his meat at night. However, because Takamitchi had promised to always protect Hinata, he squeezed Ken's shoulder and told the mofo to let go of his girl, saying that she was the one person he could never give up on. Disappointed with his betrayal, Mikey said that it was time for Takamitchi to meet the gods, and as he walked up to end his worthless life, Takamitchi said that Hinata was way more important to him than their stupid friendship. Annoyed by his simp talk, Mikey moved closer to punch his useless face, but then stopped halfway, before laughing and calling Takamitchi an idiot for thinking that he would ever hurt him because of a girl. While he was still in shock from what had just happened, Ken called Takamitchi an og for standing up to him and defending his girl, even though the odds were clearly against him. Realizing that she had screwed up big time, Hinata apologized to Mikey for slapping him like that, but he told her not to worry, because he respected any girl who was brave enough to take on a gang leader. After she had left, Mikey told Takamichi to take good care of Hinata because she was a keeper, and they headed out to enjoy the evening breeze while riding their bicycles through the park. Asking why he had chosen him as a friend, Mikey said that Takamichi reminded him a lot of his dead brother, who loved to pick fights with guys that were stronger than him. Stopping to watch the golden sunset, Mikey said that he planned on bringing a new age of revival to the Tokyo Manji gang, and that he wanted Takamichi to be a huge part of it. After he and Draken rode off in their bicycles, Takamichi walked back home wondering how someone as gentle as Mikey would end up being responsible for Hinata's death in the future. The following day, Takamichi and Hinata went out for some shopping, but after realizing that her boyfriend's grades were just as terrible as his back shots, Hinata decided to help him study for an upcoming test. They went over to her place, and Takamichi couldn't contain his excitement about how pretty the room was. But then Hinata's mom arrived with the drinks, while asking if they needed some Netflix to set the mood. Embarrassed by her mom's riz, Hinata chased the old lady away, and after studying hard all night with Takamichi, she thanked him for saving her brother from those thugs the other day. She said that he had influenced her brother in a big way, because all Naoto ever talked about now was how he wanted to become a great police officer in the future. Takamichi was excited to hear the story behind how Naoto became a cop, but Hinata just stared at him with cute eyes, saying that he had changed completely from the reckless and immature guy that she used to know. He laughed awkwardly to avoid blurting out his secret by accident, and when Hinata noticed the fireworks outside, she invited him to watch them together with her on the rooftop. Taking advantage of the mood, Takamichi walked up to Hinata and held her soft hands. But when he turned around to stare into her pretty eyes, the dumbass realized that he was holding Naoto's hand instead. So in a flash, the time sequence got activated and Takamichi found himself back at the present, yelling at Naoto for appearing at the wrong time and being such a useless cock-blocker. However, Naoto was glad that his handshake theory had actually worked, and although he was pissed at Takamichi for returning by accident, he had finally cracked the code to unlock his powers. Asking if he had found any of the gang leaders, Takamichi said that he had met up with Sano Mikey, but that Mikey seemed too innocent for all the big crimes that the current gang has committed. Naoto was annoyed by his statement, because he believed that Mikey had started the war which led to his sister's death. But Takamichi said that he wanted to meet the present-day Mikey and talk things out with him. He believed that someone else must have turned Mikey into a ruthless killer, and because Naoto was impressed by his confidence, he agreed to help Takamichi locate the gang leader. After going through numerous files and web pages, Naoto finally found something useful. But when Takamichi walked over to look at the screen, he was shocked to see that Akon was now a member of the Tokyo Manji gang. Naoto was also shocked to hear the news, because Akon had been arrested many years ago for stabbing Kiyomasa, and that's when they realized that Takamichi's little time travel experience had altered the present, because Akon was now a top dog in the gang. Naoto said that locating him was their ticket to meeting Mikey, so they went over to Takamichi's old apartment to retrieve his phone number. But when Naoto walked into the room, he was just seconds away from coming down with the coronavirus because of how disgusting the place was, so he stepped out to grab a face mask and a pair of gloves for protection. Takamichi eventually found the book where he stored all of his school memories, and after dialing Akon's number on his phone, they were directed to a 5-star hotel located downtown. Naoto was a bit suspicious that Akon would just invite them to his hotel on such short notice, and he tried warning Takamichi to stay alert. But the moron wasn't ready to listen. Walking through the entrance door, Takamichi was about to bust a nut from staring at all the hot MILFs. But he kept his cool, and told the manager that they were here to see Akon instead. After confirming their names on the list, the manager led them straight to the lounge, where they met up with Akon, who now looked like a rap artist that was addicted to smoking weed. He took Takamichi to the roof for a private chat, and after the both of them were done catching up on old times, Takamichi said that Akon was practically living the dream life compared to his. But Akon replied saying that there were some things that money just couldn't buy, and he surprised Takamichi by telling him that he knew all about how Hinata's brother was now a police officer. However, Takamichi got the biggest shock of his life when Akon revealed to him that he was the one who pushed him into the train tracks that afternoon when he almost died. But somehow, Naoto had arrived just in time to save his ass, so Akon tried asking if he had acquired the legendary power of time travel. but Takamichi just pushed him away, saying that he had turned into a crazy lunatic. Fighting back the tears, Takamichi found it hard to believe that his friend would do such a thing. But Akon apologized to him, saying that he was only following orders from the boss man Kisaki Teta. He explained that Kisaki had been the one running things in the gang for quite a while, and that Mikey had switched sides to become an outlaw after the day that Draken died. Takamichi was shocked to hear about Draken's death, but before he could convince his friend to step off the pillar, Akon jumped down like Spider-Man to hug Gwen Stacy on the ground. After crying like a toddler on the rooftop, Takamichi met up with Naoto downstairs, telling him that Kisaki was the actual villain, and that he wasn't going to rest until he brought everyone back. Meanwhile, after disappearing to the past and not showing up to work for over 2 weeks, Takamichi's boss at the video store got fed up with him, and she fired his sorry ass without any pay. So to make life much easier, Takamichi tried suggesting to Naoto that they should just tell Hinata about her future. But Naoto called him an idiot, because Hinata could easily just break up with him after hearing such a thing. The only option was for Takamichi to go back in time and fix things the hard way. But when he started sulking over Draken's death, Naoto searched up an article online, showing how he had died after getting ambushed by a rival gang. Takamichi was shocked by the date on the article, because it meant that he only had 3 weeks left to save Draken. But Naoto said that a personal beef between Mikey and Draken was probably what led to his death. Not sure what to believe in, Takamichi said that he was going to protect Draken and save everyone like they had planned. So he shook hands with Naoto and got warped back into the past. However, when he opened his eyes, Takamichi saw 2 huge reasons to give up his mission and become a milkman. But because the shoddy was too much for his virgin plot gun to handle, he ran out of the room looking like a maniac. Stopping to catch his breath, Takamichi hoped that his girlfriend would never find out about what happened. But in that moment, Hinata appeared behind him, asking what the hell he was talking about. He started making up dumb excuses to avoid the question. But when Hinata said that he had been acting weird lately, Takamichi realized that his past grumpy self must have taken over when he returned to the present. He got a call from Draken, telling him to come over for an impromptu gang meeting, and because she wanted to spend more time with him, Hinata decided to tag along as well. When they got to the location, Hinata was creeped out by how shady the place looked, and when the biker gang finally arrived, 2 of the crew members attacked Takamichi for crashing the party. However, one of the division leaders, Takashi Mitsuya, told the guys to let him go, because Takamichi was the commander's guest, and he took the both of them to meet up with Mikey. Draken was also around, and he apologized to Hinata for scaring her the other day at school, before ordering one of his biker hoes to come over and serve as her bodyguard for the night. But when Takamichi saw those familiar plot cannons from afar, he knew that there was trouble, and after hearing what went down between the both of them, Hinata took out all of her anger on Takamichi's useless face. The hottie, whose name was Emma, apologized to Takamichi for causing him trouble, saying that she had only given him a private show at the hotel because she wanted Draken to get jealous and take her out on a date. When the meeting began, Mikey stood on the podium to talk about their rivalry with another gang known as Mobius. But before Takamichi knew what was going on, 2 guys ambushed him from behind and kicked him to the ground. One of the guys, Pachin, who was the division leader for the 3rd district, hated Takamichi because of what happened with Kiyomasa, and he wanted to teach the runt a lesson. However, Draken told him to sit his fat ass down, and Mitsuya explained that Pa was only pissed because the Mobius gang had beaten up his best friend and clapped the dude's girlfriend right in front of him.
Damn!
Takamichi was shocked that something like that would happen. But Mitsuya told him that the Mobius gang was more badass than theirs, and controlled more than half of the city's major areas. With a stern look on his face, Mikey asked the gang what they should do to Mobius in return, and when Pa said that he wanted to rip all of their hearts out, Mikey smiled like a maniac, before ordering war on their ruthless rivals. After the gang meeting, Takamichi spent the entire night thinking about a plan to keep Draken safe, and he decided that the best way was for him to become Draken's bodyguard. But when Draken saw the look of desperation on his worthless face, he turned down the offer without a second thought, so Takamichi decided to follow him around the city instead. While observing them at a restaurant, Takamichi realized that Mikey only ever showed his playful side to Draken, and that Draken was sort of like his big brother, giving him piggyback rides after he fell asleep. He followed them to a hospital, where Draken and Mikey paid a visit to the girlfriend of Pa's buddy, who had climaxed so hard after getting both of her cheeks clapped that she feel on her face and became unconscious. The girl's parents arrived moments later, and as the old man called them a bunch of worthless criminals, Mikey wanted to punch his teeth out, but Draken forced him to bow down as a sign of respect to the elderly. They kept their heads bowed throughout, while the man and his wife broke down in tears and walked away. And Draken told Mikey that it was important for all gang leaders to show sympathy towards other people. After seeing how it all went down, Takamitchi realized that Draken was the voice of reason behind all of Mikey's actions, which explained why the gang went rogue in the future after he died. When they left the hospital, Mitsuya rode over to pick up Mikey, saying that there was going to be another meeting tomorrow, and Draken just nodded before walking away. But along the way, Draken remembered his early days of how his parents had abandoned him on the streets, forcing him to live in a whorehouse with a couple of college baddies. He quickly became the toughest guy in school, with all the students worshipping him like a god, and when he was just 10 years old, he decided to get a dragon tattoo on his temple, changing his name from just Ken to Draken. Because he was taller than most kids his age, Draken easily dominated everyone in a fight. But when the seniors heard about this, they brought Draken to their secret lair, warning him to keep his fighting habits in control. And as punishment for his actions, the seniors told Draken to look for another student in the 7th grade who had also been causing a lot of trouble lately, and bring him over to them. Apparently the guy had beaten up the leader of a high school gang, and when Draken rushed over to find this wonder kid, he was excited by the fact that there was someone who could finally match up to his strength. However, when Draken finally found him, he was shocked to see that it was just a short kid with no muscles, and he wondered how this little brat was able to take down an entire army of grown-up men. The boy introduced himself as Sono Mikey, and Draken was scared that he was leading him to an early grave. But when they got back to the hideout, Mikey surprised everyone by bashing his foot into the gang leader's face. Terrified by his overpowered abilities, the other crew members ran for their dear lives. But Draken stayed back because of how cool Mikey was, and the two of them became best friends in no time. Back at the present, Takamitchi and Naoto went out to learn more about the Mobius crew, but when they found the past leader of the gang, they were shocked to see that the guy was now a useless construction worker. Meeting up with him in a restaurant, the man whose name was Asanai looked very shy and reserved at first, but when Naoto asked him about Draken's death, he banged the table and said that he knew nothing about it. Naoto stayed calm and kept repeating the same question, until Asanai broke down crying and told them that a bigger boss had hired the Mobius gang to start a war between Mikey and Draken. After saying all that he could remember, Asanai walked out of the restaurant, and when they got back to the office, Naoto said that the only solution was for Takamitchi to go back and stop the two gangs from ever fighting. But when he got back to the past, Takamitchi was shocked to see himself riding a bicycle with Akon. And that was when he realized that the real Akon from his childhood would always keep living on. He advised Akon to take his life seriously and focus on his dreams of owning a celebrity hair salon in the future, before running off to find Mikey and the other gang members. When he got to the abandoned building where the meeting was held, Takamitchi tried telling the leaders to cancel the fight. But Pa got angry and started beating the crap out of him for being an annoying pest. Mikey said that the decision to fight the Mobius gang was final, but when Takamitchi fell to the ground and started groveling like a pig, Draken said that they should probably do some research before going into battle. Annoyed by his statement, Mikey called Draken a spineless loser, and the both of them were about to have a little showdown of their own when Asanai suddenly arrived at the hideout. Seeing the man that ruined his friend's life, Pa got angry and charged at him like the Hulk. But Asanai dodged his blow before finishing him off with one punch like Saitama. Asanai said that he had heard all about their plans, and because he loved to fight dirty, he decided to bring the war to them instead, along with his army of 50 samurai soldiers. Although they were outnumbered, Mikey didn't flinch one bit, and he stood up to face Asanai, calling him a coward for bringing an entire battalion to fight against a bunch of middle school kids. Takamitchi, on the other hand, kept on staring at Asanai, wondering how he turned into such a loser in the future, and when Asanai noticed this, he walked up to him and punched the stupid look off his face. Pa held him back from throwing any more punches, saying that the fight was between the two of them alone, and he pushed Takamitchi to the side before the shitface could mess things up again. Mikey told Takamitchi to sit down and enjoy the fight, but Asanai beat the shit out of Pa so much that the fatso became unconscious from drinking all the red wine that spilled out of his face. He eventually fell down on Mikey's shoulders, and after laying Pa on the floor to rest, Mikey walked up to Asanai and smashed him to the ground with his signature kickboxing move. Everyone in the room was shocked, and Mikey said that his gang could never lose to theirs in a million years. But Asanai wasn't done yet, and he grabbed a broken bottle before charging straight at Mikey. However, Draken appeared right on time to block his path, and he jammed his knee right into Asanai's nutsack, before allowing the glass bottle to fall down and shatter. After putting fear in the minds of the crew members, Draken yelled out that because Mikey had defeated their worthless leader, all of them had officially become members of the Tokyo Manji gang. Takamichi was shocked that they had actually won. But at that moment, everyone heard cop sirens outside, and they knew that it was time to bail, so Draken told the Mobius guys to come back and take Asanai with them. But suddenly, Pa got up and stabbed the mofo in the back with his pocket knife, so Draken pushed him to the ground before he could kill him and put them all in trouble. Everyone was shocked by what he did, and because the cops were getting closer to their hideout, Mikey yelled at Pa to run out with them. But Pa said that he was going to stay back and turn himself into the police. With no time to lose, Draken grabbed Mikey and bolted out of the shed, with Takamichi following right behind them. And when the cops arrived, they arrested Pa and all the other Mobius guys who were still around. Along the way, Takamichi began to feel woozy and he fainted in the middle of the road. But luckily, when he woke up in the hospital the next day, Emma was right there to give him some vitamin B to stay active. Asking her about the other gang members, Emma became emotional, saying that Draken and Mikey had gotten into a fight over the issue of Pa's arrest, causing the whole gang to split in two. Takamichi finally understood what Asanai told them at the restaurant, and he hated himself for falling asleep at such a crucial moment. But Emma was really sad about everything, so she fell down on his lap crying. And when Hinata arrived to greet Takamichi, she was so shocked to see him getting some Gok Gok 3000 from Emma, who was still grieving, that she punched him back into a coma. When he got back home, Takamichi was so bored that he finished an entire puzzle set, so his friends came over to keep him company and tell him the bad news about the Tokyo Manji gang. However, they all started to laugh at his face, saying that Mikey and Draken's fight was a minor thing that always happened, and so it couldn't possibly make the gang part ways. At that moment, Draken suddenly walked through the door with a watermelon in his hand, and when they were done eating it, he told Takamichi that Pa was going to be in jail for a whole year. Takamichi tried chasing after him to figure out why, but when they got outside, Mikey was standing right in front of the house, and the both of them started arguing about who was a better friend to Takamichi. Scared that something worse could happen, Takamichi tried telling them to chill out, but Draken grabbed his shirt and was about to transfer the aggression to him, so Mikey got mad and threw a freaking bicycle at him. The both of them kept throwing stuff at each other, destroying all of Takamichi's precious memories, and when it was too much for him to handle, Takamichi transformed into a fire lord and was ready to burn them alive. He tried punching Mikey on the face but fell into a garbage pile instead, and when he got back up, Takamichi wanted to strangle Draken like a chicken. But his friends quickly arrived to stop him from doing something crazy. Tired of seeing them battle against each other, Takamichi fell down crying, saying that their stupid cat fight was going to be the reason that the entire gang turned rogue in the future. However, nobody understood what he was saying, and when Mikey told Takamichi that a piece of shit was stuck inside his hair, everyone started laughing at him instead, and the guys suddenly became friends again. They went to the park, where Mikey and Draken apologized to each other, and Takamichi realized that they were only fighting because of their conflicting opinions regarding what happened to Pa. While he was celebrating the success of his mission, the girls met up with Takamichi, and after much persuasion from Emma, Hinata asked him to be her date for the Dragon Festival. Emma was shocked that the guys were back together, but Draken told her that the fight wasn't even real to begin with, and while the girls chatted about the festival, Takamichi joined the boys to play soccer and have a fun time. The next evening at the festival, the girls arrived in their beautiful dresses, and while Takamichi was super excited to see Hinata, Draken didn't give a shit about what Emma was wearing. Hinata said that she wanted Emma and Draken to become a couple, and when Takamichi asked how the both of them became friends, she said that Emma was a good person who was just desperate for some manly attention. However, Hinata hadn't forgotten all about his little private show with Emma, and to redeem himself, she said that he had to win a special prize for her at the local shooting game. But Takamichi was bad at shooting his shot on both girls and games, so he ended up making a fool of himself and wasting all of his money without winning a single prize. Hinata laughed at his bad luck, but when rain started to pour down, they quickly ran into the forest to avoid getting soaked, and Takamichi realized that they had somehow ended up alone. Because his wood was getting harder than the trees around, Takamichi decided to take advantage of the situation and get freaky. He told him that some of the gang members weren't too happy about the reunion, and that they planned on attacking Draken later on that night. But Takamichi was shocked because he thought that he had already fixed everything. Although Homeboy had a terrible case of the blue balls, he was forced to leave Hinata and search for Draken instead, while cursing himself along the way for getting distracted by the festival. He stopped running after spotting some gang members from afar, but was shocked to see Kiyomasa with a blade in his hand, saying that he was going to kill Draken for ruining his life. Takamichi wondered what to do with this info, but then Joker Face suddenly found him and dragged him into the open, while the other guys made fun of him, ordering him to get them drinks like they did with his cousin. He tried getting up to fight Kiyomasa, but when Takamichi remembered that he was just a loser without Mikey and Draken's help, he started apologizing while they kicked his ass on the ground. After tying him up in duct tape, Kiyomasa stomped his foot on Takamichi's useless face, saying that he was going to kill Draken and put the blame on him, before walking away with his crew. Luckily, Hinata was able to track him down, and when she took the tape off his mouth, Takamichi told her to leave him there to die, because he was too much of a worthless failure to save anyone's life. However, Hinata bent over to kiss his lips, causing all the raindrops to glow, and she said that although he was a pussy compared to Mikey and Draken, he was still her man and she believed in him more than anyone else. After getting a power-up from his favorite girl, Takamichi ran back to find Draken and warn him about the attack. But along the way, he met up with Mitsuya, who had also heard of the attack and drove over to stop it. But when Takamichi said that it was Kiyomasa who wanted to kill Draken, Mitsuya was surprised because his intel had told him that the real villain was Pei Yan, the 3rd Division Vice Captain. Meanwhile, as Draken and Emma were walking back home, Pei suddenly appeared behind them, and when Draken noticed the sinister look in his eyes, he told Emma to stay back before walking up to face him. Pei was pissed because of what happened to Pa at the hideout, and Draken told him to bring it on. But a Mobius gang member suddenly arrived and whacked him on the head with a baseball bat. Takamichi and Mitsuya quickly ran over to warn Draken about the planned attack, but when they got to the parking lot, they saw that he was already busy beating up some Mobius scum. Emma called Pei a worthless coward for ambushing Draken with an entire squad, and because he was starting to become unconscious, Draken sat down on the ground and told Mitsuya to take over. The Mobius guys started laughing because they felt that there was no way Mitsuya could take them on. But at that moment, Mikey arrived on his motorcycle looking like a total badass. He yelled at Pei for siding with their rivals, and when he asked him who was behind all of this, a tall creep with a cancer stick in his hand walked up to Mikey, introducing himself as Hanma, the new leader of the Mobius gang. However, Mikey didn't give a shit about him, and he threw his trademark kick at the loser to bring him down. But Hanma stopped his foot in midair, shocking Mitsuya and everyone around. Hanma told Mikey to chill out, because the party was just getting started, and he ordered his men to kill all 4 of them unless he would carve their hearts out with his bare hands. Takamichi was confused by the surprising turn of events, and he wondered how he was going to save Draken now. But before he knew it, 100 guys arrived with their bikes to help Mikey and the gang. The other division leaders walked up in front, and after Mikey gave the order for them to fight, everyone ran into the battlefield to face off their opponents and knock some teeth out. The parking lot quickly turned into a boxing ring, and while Mikey and the other leaders destroyed all of their ops in style, Takamichi struggled to keep his feet up while trying to protect Draken from danger. Seeing that he was out of his league, Takamichi thought of giving up again, but when he remembered how Akon had died right in front of him, he decided to get up and keep fighting. Meanwhile, Mikey was pissed at Pei for betraying the gang, and he took down all of his useless minions before walking up to him and asking him why he wanted to kill Draken. But Pei hated all of them for giving up on Pa so easily, so he curled up his fist in anger and used it to punch Mikey's face multiple times while telling him to fight back like a man. However, Mikey understood his pain, and he allowed Pei to vent out all of his rage before pulling him closer for a hug, saying that he also wasn't happy about what happened to Pa. Mikey begged him to come back to the gang because all of the guys loved him, and although Pei was shocked that he didn't say no homo, he couldn't stop the tears from coming out. Everyone was still fighting, and as Takamichi searched around for Draken, he saw Kiyomasa passing by and wanted to stop him, but was shocked when he noticed the bloody knife in his hand. Kiyomasa smiled like the devil as he walked away, and when Takamichi realized that it was too late, he rushed over to meet Draken but found him lying on the floor in a pool of his own blood. Mikey was still busy trying to take out all of the Mobius guys, so Takamichi yelled out that Draken had been stabbed. But when Mikey tried to reach him, he was held back and thrown away by Hanma. He tried landing his karate kick on him, but Hanma blocked the move twice, so Mikey went in for a hard uppercut instead. And as the both of them kept fighting, Takamichi realized that Draken was actually still alive. Mikey told him to take care of Draken, and when Takamichi noticed that no one could help him, he decided to take on the challenge and carry Draken to the hospital on his back. But along the way, Takamichi realized that the mofo was really heavy and he felt like giving up already, but he just kept pushing on, until Emma and Hinata met up with him saying that they had already called an ambulance. They stopped by the roadside to wait for the bus, but when Takamichi noticed that Kiyomasa and his crew of circus freaks were headed in their direction, he knew that they were screwed. They threatened to tie him up in duct tape again. But then Draken suddenly became conscious, and because he knew that Takamichi was going to get his ass kicked, he told him to grab the girls and run away. However, when he remembered how he had been a pussy all his life, Takamichi stood his ground and told the girls to stay back, before walking up to face Kiyomasa and his goons. Reminding him about their epic brawl at the Fight Club, Takamichi challenged Kiyomasa to a rematch, and when his friends realized that he was serious, they started placing bets on him, saying that he was going to defeat Kiyomasa. Encouraged by his friends' words, Takamichi charged forward to attack, but the dumbass forgot to check his opponent's weapon, and he got stabbed in the hand with a pocket knife. He managed to pull the blade out of his palm, but Takamichi was still too powerless to land a single punch on Kiyomasa, so he decided to change strategies and tackle him to the ground instead. But Kiyomasa was solid as a rock and he kept on standing, so Takamichi turned into a literal savage, jabbing his teeth deep into Kiyomasa's gut until he screamed out like a virgin tasting the forbidden fruit.
What do you mean by that?
He was able to climb onto Kiyomasa's back, and Takamichi kept on squeezing his neck in a super tight headlock, until Kiyomasa became unconscious and the both of them fell to the ground. Smiling like a crazy person, Takamichi felt happy to finally get his revenge on Kiyomasa for ruining his life. But Joker Face told him not to get too excited, because he still had to take all of them down. So Takamichi told Hinata and Emma to find a safe place to stay, and after the girls were gone, Draken got up to help him fight. Even though either of them could pass out at any moment, they stood their ground while the circus freaks charged up at them. But then out of nowhere, Akon appeared and punched Joker Face to the side, after which the other guys arrived as well to take up the fight. Seeing them risk their lives for him, Takamichi realized that although his mission wasn't a total success, he had managed to inspire his friends to never give up and keep on fighting. Shocked by their crazy passion, Joker Face and the others quickly ran away, and after the guys were done celebrating their victory, Emma and Hinata arrived with the paramedics to take Draken to the hospital. Meanwhile, back at the parking lot, Mikey was still standing like an undefeated champion, and because Hanma was too tired to keep up, he called one of his biker dudes to take him away. Everyone started to run away to avoid getting cuffed by the police, and Hanma warned Mikey about the coming of a new gang with a deadly crew before riding off in his motorcycle. Inside the ambulance, Takamichi kept praying for Draken to get better, but then he suddenly woke up and stretched his hand to him, telling him to look after Mikey before flatlining from a heart attack. The paramedics tried reviving him using CPR but with no success, so when they got to the hospital, Draken was rushed over to the operating room for an emergency heart surgery. He told the others what happened, and Emma couldn't stop herself from crying. But when Mikey arrived at the hospital, he pretended like everything was alright to avoid letting his true emotions show. Staring at the operating room, Mikey told everyone to remain confident and keep their hopes up, because Draken was too much of a fighter to die at a hospital after being stabbed by a traitor. Takamichi and the others were inspired by his words, and after spending hours in the waiting room, the doctors finally stepped out, telling them that Draken's surgery was successful. Excited by the good news, Mitsuya and the guys ran out to tell the gang members, but when Takamichi noticed that Pei was still standing, he told them that he was too ashamed to face the crew after being a traitor. However, Mitsuya told him not to worry about it because they all understood his reasons, but that despite what he had thought, Draken was actually the one who cared about Pa the most. He said that while Pa was getting his cheeks clapped at the slammer by the freaky inmates, Draken was the only one who followed his parents every day to visit him and bring gifts. Mitsuya told Pei to apologize to Draken and the others after everything was over, and while Takamichi was outside with the girls, he He realized that he had successfully completed the mission that Naoto gave him. But when he noticed that Mikey wasn't with the gang, he ran around looking for him until he found him crying outside of Draken's hospital room after hiding his emotions throughout the night. 1 week after the fight, Takamitchi became a local champion on the streets, but when he went over to greet Draken at the hospital, Draken made fun of his outfit and called him an idiot for getting hyped over one win. Annoyed by his attitude, Takamitchi told Draken that he deserved to feel good after being a loser for so long. But Draken was just messing with him and he pointed to a bag on the ground, saying that it was a gift from Mikey. When he took out what was inside, Draken told him that it was Mikey's jacket from when he first became the leader of the gang, and Takamitchi felt like he didn't deserve such a thing. However, Draken said that the entire gang owed him a huge debt of gratitude for everything, so he got up and bowed his head to thank Takamitchi for saving his life. Wondering if he would ever be worthy of the jacket, Draken told Takamitchi to talk to Mikey about it. But when he got to the rooftop, Mikey confronted him, asking him how he knew what was going to happen before time. His stupid ass was just about to say everything regarding the time travel mission with Naoto, when Mikey laughed it off and jumped down, thanking him for saving Draken and the gang. After achieving his main objective, Takamitchi went over to meet Naoto so that he could return to the present, but before leaving, he gave Hinata a clover necklace to apologize for being such a shit boyfriend all this while. He looked at her pretty face one last time before shaking Naoto's hand to activate the time sequence. But when Takamitchi opened his eyes, he was shocked to find himself back in his lame job at the video store. Wondering if it was all just a dream, Takamitchi tried calling Naoto to confirm. But when he saw the scar on his hand from the fight with Kiyomasa, he realized that everything had actually happened. He got a message on his phone from a strange number informing him about a meeting, and when Takamitchi got to the venue, he was surprised to see Akon looking like his usual self and working at a hair salon. Akon said that he was going to become a hairstylist real soon and that he wanted him to be his first customer, so Takamitchi began crying because it meant that his plan had actually worked. However, his phone started to ring, and when Takamitchi picked up the call, it was Naoto who answered it, telling him that their mission was successful and that it was time for them to meet his sister. On the car ride to her place, Naoto said that they had managed to completely erase the timeline in which his sister died from a gang war, and Takamitchi was excited that he would finally be able to see her in the present. When they got to the apartment building, Naoto told him that Hinata was now a grade school teacher, but Takamitchi kept fantasizing about all the different styles he was going to teach her when they met again. However, along the way, he started having doubts about whether Hinata would actually want to see him after 12 years, so he told Naoto to go on without him, before turning around and walking the other way. Takamitchi slammed his fist on the wall for being such a coward even after all he had gone through to save everyone. But when he walked through the apartment door, he bumped into a familiar face. Looking up at the person, he was shocked to see that it was actually Hinata, and when he remembered all the good times they had shared, Takamitchi couldn't stop himself from crying in front of her. Getting to her room, the both of them acted strange like they were on a first date, so Naoto got up to leave. But when Takamitchi held his leg and begged him like a servant, he said that they should all go for a drive instead. But along the way, Naoto got a call from his boss ordering him to help out with the case, so he left his car with the lovebirds before walking away, and Takamichi's heart was about to explode from being left alone with Hinata. He wondered if the chain on her neck was the one that he had given her before returning to the present, and after she parked the car, Hinata asked him to follow her for a quick stroll. She stopped to look at the beautiful view, and when Hinata said that she missed walking down this park with her favorite person, Takamichi thought that she was referring to her new boyfriend. However, Hinata was actually talking about him, and when she turned around to ask him why he had dumped her all those years ago, Takamichi realized that he was the one who ended their relationship in the past. Shocked by this news, he ran away from her and went to the bathroom to clear his mind. But when Takamichi saw his disgusting face in the mirror, he decided to be brave and talk things out with Hinata like a man. On the way out, he met a strange man in a suit. But when Takamichi saw the familiar tattoo on his hand, he realized that it was Hanma from the Mobius gang, so he rushed over to check up on Hinata. But before Takamichi could get to her, a truck drove right past him, ramming straight into Hinata in the car. And when Takamichi looked at the driver, he was shocked to see that it was his friend Akon. Akon actually had wanted to kill both of them in the car, and when Takamichi asked him why he would do such a thing, He said that he was forced to take orders from Kisaki Teda. Takamichi was devastated that the same events from before the time jump were still occurring. But while he was still crying about it, the truck suddenly exploded and blasted him to the ground. The fire began spreading to Hinata's car, and after spending 3 business days sulking about the past, Takamichi finally decided to save her, but the impact of the attack had crushed her legs, making her unable to walk. With no other option left, Takamichi hugged Hinata tightly, saying that he had always loved her despite whatever happened. And when she heard those words, Hinata cried out tears of joy. But because she wanted him to keep on living, Hinata pushed him away from the car just before it exploded. And as he stared into the flames, Takamichi swore to never give up until he had finally saved her from dying. The next day at Hinata's funeral, everyone walked up to the front to say a few words of prayer, but when it was Takamichi's turn, he was so devastated by what happened that he just stood there and refused to leave. Touched by his passion, Naoto couldn't hold back the tears anymore and he just broke down crying. So Takamichi stopped his silent prayer and walked over to be by his side. Outside the building, while Takamichi was staring aimlessly at a pond, Hinata's mother came around and returned the clover necklace to him, saying that it was Hinata's most prized possession while she was alive. She also said that Hinata had loved him very much before she passed on, and as he stared at the burnt jewelry, Takamichi began to cry because it reminded him of how Hinata had died. When they met up later, Naoto told Takamichi that Akon had a wife and son, who were both kidnapped by the Tokyo Manji gang, which was why he was forced to obey Kisaki's orders to murder Hinata. Frustrated by the outcome of their mission, Naoto said that there was no point in even trying, but Takamichi told him confidently that he was going to change the present by becoming the leader of the Tokyo Manji gang in the past. Naoto just laughed at his stupid ambition, but Takamichi assured him that it was the only way to save Hinata, so Naoto thanked him for not losing hope and he got up to join him for a walk. Confused on how the gang turned rogue despite Draken being alive, the both of them decided to pay him a visit. But Takamichi was shocked to discover that Draken was now a death row inmate at a detention facility. His hair had fallen off from all of the stress, and when Takamichi asked him why he got arrested, Draken said that he had no regrets because it was his fault that the gang turned into a killing squad. He reminisced about the good times when he and Mikey would ride their bikes all through the night, and Draken said that his only wish was that he had killed Kisaki before it was too late. Shocked by this statement, Takamichi tried to get a better explanation, but Draken's visiting time was over, and before he left, he told Takamichi to get out of town because Kisaki and his crew wanted him dead. Back at Naoto's place, the guys tried searching the web for any information about Kisaki, but they found nothing, and when he realized that it was time to take action, Takamichi said that he was ready for another time jump. Naoto felt like his plan of taking over the gang was crazy, but Takamichi said that it was the only option they had left, so the both of them shook hands and activated the time sequence once again. However, when Takamichi opened up his eyes, everyone had a good laugh before heading out to meet the others. Mikey said that it was time for them to bring in a new captain for the 3rd Division, so they all rode their bikes to the gang's official meeting point to witness the coronation ceremony. Mikey announced that it was time for the new captain to step out, and while Takamichi and the others wondered who it was, a random guy wearing glasses walked up to the front with his bodyguard. Takamichi felt like he had seen the dude's face before and he tried to remember where they had met. But he was shocked out of his mind when the bodyguard announced that he was Kisaki Teda. Takamichi was supposed to defeat Kisaki, who would be responsible for the death of all his friends in the future. But now that the same guy was standing right in front of him, he had no idea what to do next. The gang members were pissed because Kisaki was formerly a Mobius captain, but Mikey told them to shut the hell up because they needed Kisaki and his crew if they were going to face off with Hanna's new gang. Kisaki thanked Mikey for the position and was about to leave. But when Takamichi stared at his evil face and remembered how he was the one who caused Hinata's murder, he climbed up the stairs and punched the mofo right on the face. However, Takamichi knew that he was screwed when Draken yelled at him for disrespecting an official captain, and all the other division leaders started gathering around to teach his ass a lesson. Baji, the 1st Division leader, decided to join the fun, and the others told him to stay away, but he charged straight at Takamichi and started beating the shit out of him, forcing Mitsuya to stop him by holding his hand back. Samurai Jack's son was tired of all their bullshit, so he told Mikey that he was going to join Hanna's crew instead, and he declared himself as an enemy of the gang before walking out of the ceremony. Everyone was shocked by the betrayal, but Kisaki was excited to see their little gang falling apart already, and as payback for his rudeness, He walked up to Takamichi and knocked him out with a single punch. When he woke up, Takamichi was shocked to see Mikey by his side, who told him that the former 1st Division captain was actually his childhood friend and next-door neighbor. He said that Baji was always a spontaneous guy, who would pick fights with people for no reason, which was probably why he punched Takamichi in the face during the ceremony. According to Mikey, he and Baji practically formed the gang, along with Draken and the other division leaders, and to see him leave everything behind to join the enemy gang really broke his heart. Mikey asked him to help them bring Baji back, and Takamichi agreed to do it, but under the condition that Mikey would remove Kasaki from the gang and replace him with someone else. So Mikey said that he would banish Kasaki from the gang completely if Takamichi was able to make Baji return. But if not, he would chop his balls off and feed them to the vultures. He sensed that someone was spying on them, and when Mikey said that the person should show themselves, Mitsuya stepped out from behind the tree, apologizing for listening to their entire convo. As punishment for his actions, Mikey said that he was officially making Takamichi a member of the gang under Mitsuya's unit, and Mitsuya wished that he had returned home instead of eavesdropping. Takamichi stayed back to wash the blood off his face, but when he was about to leave the place, he saw a lucky charm on the ground and wondered who had left it behind. Opening up the locket, Takamichi saw a picture inside showing all the founding members of the gang when they were younger, but he also noticed that there was another person in the photo with a tiger tattoo on his neck. The next day at school, Takamichi stayed back in class to figure out how he was going to bring Baji back, and when his friends saw him, they congratulated him for becoming an actual member of the Tokyo Manji gang. However, Takamichi wasn't really excited about it, and when he told them about his deal with Mikey concerning Baji, Yama decided to give everyone a quick lecture about the history of gangs in their city. He explained that the Tokyo Manji gang had a total number of 100 men, with each of the 5 divisions having 20 men, unlike the Mobius gang, which primarily consisted of 2 distinct groups. The first Mobius group was created by Asanai 2 years before the second group, which was created by Kasaki Tea. But when Asanai was brutally defeated by Mikey, both of the groups decided to go their separate ways. Kasaki and his group joined the Tokyo Manji gang out of respect for Mikey, increasing their number to 150, while the first group joined forces with other crews around the city to form a larger gang called Valhalla. However, while they were talking, a strange guy walked into the room asking for Takamichi, and when Yama saw the tiger tattoo on his neck, he quickly recognized him as one of Valhalla's leaders, Hanamiya Kazutora. But Kazutora was excited to meet Takamichi, who he had heard so much about, and he invited him to follow his crew back to the Valhalla hideout so that he could meet all the members. Takamichi was terrified of the guy, but he knew that it was his only ticket to meeting up with Baji, and when he saw Hinata walking downstairs, he forgot all about his fears and agreed to follow them to the hideout. Along the way, Takamichi asked Kazutora why he had never seen him in their school before, and Kazutora said that although he was a third-year student, he had only been around for his first year because he was sent off to juvie. Takamichi wondered what he did to end up in juvie, and when they got to the hideout, which was basically an abandoned arcade, Takamichi noticed how all the gang members looked like zombies with their cheap cancer sticks. They joined a crowd of people watching Baji punch the shit out of some guy, and Kazutora explained that as part of his initiation process, Baji was required to beat up the 1st Division vice captain of the Tokyo Manji gang. Takamichi was shocked to hear this, and after Baji was done punching the vice captain's face into a pulp, he turned to look at Hanma, asking if that was enough for him to finally join Valhalla. Hanma's henchmen were surprised that Baji could actually go that far, but Hanma told Kazutora to introduce their guest to the crowd, so he told them that Takamichi was the newest member of the Tokyo Manji gang. Baji recognized Takamichi from the ceremony, and when everyone heard that he belonged to the enemy gang, they began chanting for him to be killed and used as a sacrifice to the gods. However, Hanma said that Takamichi was here to act as a witness to Baji's true intentions, and when he was asked to speak on the matter, Takamichi confirmed that Baji was no longer a member of the Tokyo Manji gang. Asking Kazutora for his opinion, Kazutora told Hanma that Baji would be a valuable addition to their team, because he was an ex-division leader who knew everything about how their enemy gang worked. Bowing his head down, Baji promised to help them destroy Mikey and his gang, and after Hanma was satisfied with his performance, he made Baji an official member of the Valhalla gang. But Takamichi wasn't about to give up after risking his life to join these freaks, so he asked Baji to explain why he wanted to leave the Tokyo Manji gang so badly after being one of its founding members. Baji told him to think again because Kazutora was also a founding member, and it was then that Takamichi realized that Kazutora was the sixth person in the photo that he had seen earlier. He went on to explain how Kazutora came to hate the Tokyo Manji gang so much, starting with when they all met up at a local restaurant to receive their gang jackets for the first time. They took their legendary group photo soon after, and the guys started riding their bikes on the streets like a proper gang. But Mikey kept slowing everyone down with his shitty grandma wheels. Draken tried telling him to switch his moped for an actual motorcycle, but Mikey insisted that his vehicle was high class, and then another gang came riding by, mocking their outfits and calling their gang a glorified preschool club. The leader tried snatching Mikey's useless bicycle using a baseball bat, but when Mikey threatened to punch his stupid teeth out, the guy stepped back before riding away with his crew. On their way to the beach, Mikey's moped ran out of gas, but to avoid going to the gas station himself, he decided to choose the member with the lowest body count, so Baji ended up having to do all the work instead. The guys almost climaxed from staring at all the beach baddies, while Baji dragged Mikey's stupid bike under the scorching sun. But along the way, he was stopped by the same group of losers that made fun of their gang earlier. Seeing that he was now alone, the Purple Power Rangers decided to use Baji as an example to teach the others a lesson, so they took him back to their hideout and beat the living shit out of him. However, despite all the beating, Baji was still standing, and when the leader of the gang tried smashing Mikey's moped with his baseball bat, Baji surprised everyone by covering the bike with his back and taking the hit instead. He threatened to kill all of them if they laid a finger on the moped, and the purple pageants laughed at his stupid confidence. But at that moment, Mikey suddenly arrived to protect his friend. He destroyed the moped by himself without using any weapons, shocking everyone with his brute strength. And then Mikey used his trademark kick to smash one of the gang members to the ground. He apologized to Baji for all the trouble, after which the two of them battled against the other gang members. And on the night before Mikey's birthday, Kazutora and Baji decided to get him a new bike as a birthday present. Baji wondered how they were going to afford such a thing, but Kazutora told him not to worry. And when they got to the automobile shop, Kazutora said that they should steal the bike inside for Mikey. Baji was against it, saying that Mikey wouldn't be happy if he found out how they got the bike. But Kazutora told him to stop being a pussy, because the bike was going to increase the overall Riz score of their gang. They grabbed dinner at a restaurant to pass the time, and after everywhere was dark, the boys went back for the mission, with Kazutora using his criminal skills to break the glass and open up the door. Baji was still anxious about the whole thing, but when he saw the motorcycle and imagined how cool Mikey would look in it, he agreed to help Kazutora break the lock on the rear tire. After struggling for a few minutes, they were able to snap the cable, and Baji was excited to get Mikey his dream gift. But before they could move the bike outside, the shop owner woke up and started walking in their direction. The man said that he was going to kill both of them for robbing his place, but when he got closer, Baji realized that it was actually Mikey's older brother Shinakairo who owned the bike store. Shinakairo recognized Baji as well, but before Baji could explain what the hell they were doing in his shop in the middle of the night, Kazutora rushed in and smashed his head with a cutting tool. Kazutora was breathing hard like a wild animal, but Baji was petrified because they had just murdered someone, so instead of running away, he rushed over to check on Shinakairo. Kazutora defended himself, saying that he had knocked the guy out to stop them from going to jail. But when Baji explained that Shinakairo was actually Mikey's older brother, Kazutora knew that he had screwed up big time. Shinakairo's head was covered in blood, and when Baji saw that there was nothing they could do to save him, he said that they should call an ambulance and run away before anyone noticed. However, before Baji could type in the number, he heard police sirens outside and told Kazutora that they should get going. But Kazutora was already losing his mind, and he said that he was going to kill Mikey for ruining his life. The police arrived to arrest the boys, and Mikey was shocked to see his buddies in handcuffs. But Baji just started crying and apologizing for what happened, while Kazutora kept reminding himself that Mikey was the enemy. When he was done with the story, Baji said that it was Kazutora who defended him and stopped the cops from throwing him into juvie as well, which was why he had sworn to help him defeat Mikey once he got out. Takamichi was shocked to hear this, because it meant that Baji was never loyal to their gang in the first place. But Hanma was pleased with his story, and he gave him a Valhalla jacket to make his membership official. He also said that Takamichi should tell Mikey and the others that the next battle between their gangs would happen in exactly 1 week from now on the afternoon of Halloween. Later that night, Takamichi had trouble falling asleep because his big mouth had gone and made a promise that he couldn't keep, and he knew that Mikey was going to murder him for failing the mission. But on his way to school the next morning, a random guy told Takamichi to sit down by the swing set, and because he thought the dude was a crazy person, Takamichi just ignored him and kept on walking. However, when the guy introduced himself as Matsuno Chifuyu, the 1st Division Vice Captain, Takamichi remembered that he was the one who Baji had beaten up during the initiation. He told Takamichi that Baji wasn't really a bad guy like everyone thought, and that when he had attacked him during the coronation, Baji was only trying to stop the others from whooping his ass even more. Chifuyu also said that Baji's purpose for joining Valhalla wasn't to betray Mikey or their gang, but to expose Kisaki Teta as the mastermind behind everything that happened after Pa was arrested. Walking away from the playground, Chifuyu said that he wanted to assist Baji by researching everything he could about Kisaki, and he asked Takamichi to help him out with this plan. They joined Mikey and Draken in the evening to visit Shinakairo's tomb, and after they were done offering prayers, Mikey said that the bike Baji and Kazutora tried to steal was actually meant to be a birthday gift from his brother. His motorcycle was the only thing that Mikey could use to remember Shinakairo by, and although he had forgiven Baji already, Mikey could never let himself forgive Kazutora for killing his brother. Turning his attention to Takamichi, Mikey asked him if he was ready to die now that he had failed to bring Baji back, and Takamichi was about to piss his pants and give up on the entire mission. But when he remembered how Hinata had died right in front of him, Takamichi said that he was going to make it up to Mikey by becoming the leader of their gang someday. When they left the graveyard, Chifuyu called Takamichi crazy for what he told Mikey, but he said that he was going to help him achieve his goals in exchange for helping him investigate Kisaki. Takamichi agreed to become partners, and the both of them went to a bookstore where they found Asanai, who said that he had first met Kisaki during his early days as a delinquent. Kisaki promised to turn him into a powerful gang boss, so Asanai agreed to merge their squads together. But he was too stupid to realize that Kisaki was only trying to use him for his own selfish interests. According to Asanai, Kisaki was the one who ordered the attack on Draken, because his plan was to become the new vice commander and eventually take control of the entire gang. But when Draken managed to survive the ambush from Kiyomasa, Kisaki met up with Mikey, saying that he would help them bust Pa out of jail in exchange for becoming the new 3rd Division captain. Kisaki was also the secret commander of the Valhalla gang, and when Chifuyu asked Asanai why he didn't do anything to stop him, Asanai said that Kisaki was a ruthless guy who was not afraid to kill anyone that got in his way. Leaving the bookstore, Takamichi wondered why Kisaki would create Valhalla and still join their gang, so he decided to jump back to the present and visit Draken for a second time. However, when he asked him who the real leader of Valhalla was, Draken said that it was Mikey, because in the past when their gang lost the battle, they were taken over by Valhalla and Mikey was made the new commander. Shocked by this, Takamichi asked how they had lost the battle with Mikey by their side. But Draken said that the gang had actually lost because Mikey went wild and killed Kazutora in the process. According to Draken, Kisaki provided someone to take the fall for Mikey's actions, securing his position as the vice commander of the entire gang, and turning Mikey into an evil crime boss. Takamichi couldn't believe that his mentor Mikey would ever do such a thing. But Draken said that Mikey had no choice because Kazutora killed his brother and still ended up killing Baji during the gang war. Outside the detention center, Takamichi kept seeing visions of Mikey and others during the Halloween battle, so when they got back to Nayato's place, Takamichi said that his mission would be to stop Mikey from killing Kazutora. Nayato was impressed by his determination, and they shook hands to activate the time sequence, teleporting Takamichi back to the past, right in front of Hinata's apartment. She went inside and came back minutes later with a gift for him. But when Takamichi took out the item, he was surprised to see that it was the same necklace that he had given her weeks ago. Hinata said that she wanted them to have matching items like a couple, but when he remembered how her mom had returned the necklace to him, Takamichi couldn't hold back the tears. She teased him for being such a crybaby, and Takamichi promised to keep the jewelry safe. But while all this was going on, Draken and Kazutora met up in an underpass to discuss the battle. Draken asked him why he wanted to kill Mikey so much when it was Mikey who helped reduce his jail time. But Kazutora said that he didn't care because it was Mikey's fault that he wasted 2 precious years in a prison cell. He tried telling him to come back to the crew, But Kazutora said that Valhalla was going to destroy all of them during the gang war, and he walked out of the tunnel. A day before the Halloween battle, Takamichi followed Chifuyu to meet up with Baji, but when he asked him if he was truly siding with the Valhalla gang, Baji said that he was going to kill Mikey with his bare hands. Shocked by this statement, Chifuyu walked away from him, but Takamichi stayed back, and he told Baji to make sure that he wasn't killed during the battle because it would break Mikey's heart and turn him into a monster. However, Baji said that he was going to crush his heart anyways, and when Takamichi went over to tell Mikey the bad news, Mikey said that he had no other choice but to defeat him and the entire Valhalla crew. But when the gang met up for a final meeting before the battle, Mikey changed his mind and he charged the members to fight well against Valhalla so that they could bring Baji back to their team. The next day, it was time for the Halloween battle, and all the big names in the Tokyo gang scene were present to watch Hanma and his Valhalla crew take on Mikey and his Manji gangsters. A creepy dude walked up to the center of the car lot, introducing himself as Hansen, the leader of Tokyo's most notorious crime squad, and he said that he was going to be the official referee for today's battle. He yelled out for both gangs to step into the ring, and everyone in the arena had their eyes on the invincible Mikey. But it was Draken who stepped forward to represent his gang. Hansen asked them if they wanted the fight to be a 5-on-5 battle or an outright gang war, but Draken said that he was down either ways, and that if his gang won they were going to take Baji back with them. However, Kazutora was pissed off because no one had forced Baji to switch sides in the first place, and he punched the useless referee down, before telling Draken and his team to bring it on. Mikey ordered the boys to attack, and everyone immediately started beating up the Valhalla guys. But as Takamichi was busy trying to find Baji, he got tackled to the ground by an enemy member. The guy was about to pounce on Takamichi like an angry lion when Mitsuya appeared and kicked him down, and he yelled at Takamichi for spoiling the reputation of the 2nd Division by fighting like a pussy. Another guy tried to attack them, but Mitsuya punched him away while telling Takamichi to stay focused on the fight. But when he saw 2 scary guys coming his way, Takamichi was getting ready to piss himself. However, Chifuyu appeared and told him to face his fears like a man, so by channeling the anger of Hinata's death into his fists, Takamichi was able to punch someone down for the first time. Meanwhile, Kazutora tried blowing Mikey into space with his rocket punch, but Draken appeared right on time to block his fist. So Hanma kicked him away so that the both of them could fight each other instead. Takamichi kept on going despite all the punches to his face, and while Draken was taking on both Hanma and his goons at the same time, he realized that the Valhalla guys were slowly overpowering them. He helped one of the members fight off an enemy, and Draken tried telling him to keep on fighting, but the guy said that he wanted to give up because he wasn't a badass warrior like him or Mikey. The others were giving up as well, and Hanma's reinforcement team had already arrived, and while Draken was preparing to do a 20v1 like Drake, Takamichi suddenly started screaming and running forward like a madman. He kept saying that he was going to kill every last Valhalla member until he collapsed into Mitsuya's arms, but Takamichi's speech was able to inspire the other members to get up and keep on fighting. Draken thanked him for getting the team fired up, and he charged forward into the battlefield, destroying every single person in his path, and taking down over 50 guys without breaking a sweat. With no one else to stop him, Draken ran up to Hanma and blasted him away with a super punch, while Mikey chased Kazutora up to a pile of wrecked cars, but was ambushed by one of his henchmen. Mikey landed back down like a superhero, and he called Kazutora a coward for not fighting him one-on-one. But Kazutora said that he would let his friends Chonbo and Chom that he had met in Jubi do the dirty work instead. Chonbo tried attacking him, but Mikey blocked it so easily and almost crushed him with his foot. So Kazutora explained that he had brought him up here to mess with his stance and stop him from using his power kicks. Mikey kept trying to take down both Chonbo and Chom, but while he was battling with the henchmen, Kazutora appeared from nowhere and bashed him in the face with a pole. However, despite the massive hit, Mikey managed to get back up, and when he asked Kazutora why he hated him so much, Kazutora said that it was because of his stupid birthday gift that he got sent to Jubi. Chonbo and Chom held Mikey down while Kazutora kept on whacking him on the head with an exhaust pipe, and when Draken tried running up to help him out, he was blocked and smacked down by Hanma. Kazutora tortured Mikey until he was bleeding all over, but to his surprise, Mikey was still conscious, and he knocked Chom away with a headbutt, before smashing both Chonbo and Kazutora to the ground with his ninjutsu kick. Mikey went full sicko mode for a while before crashing down from all the blood loss, and when the Valhalla guys saw that he was now weak, They decided to take advantage of the situation to finish him off for good. Draken tried helping out, but he was still stuck with Hanma, so Takamitchi decided to be the savior instead. But he kept getting pushed around by the stronger Valhalla guys who wanted to kill Mikey. He managed to make it to the car pile, but a Valhalla captain was already getting close to Mikey, and as he was about to strike him with a metal rod, Kisaki appeared and punched the mofo down. He declared that he and his division will take charge of protecting Mikey, but when Takamitchi looked at the captain more closely, he realized that the guy was actually one of Kisaki's henchmen in disguise. The gang members were glad to see Kisaki in action, but Takamitchi was worried because if Kisaki managed to become Mikey's trusted ally, he would end up turning the gang rogue just like in the future. Draken thanked Kisaki for stepping up, and Takamitchi started crying because he felt like he had failed his mission. But out of nowhere, Baji climbed up the cars and smacked Kisaki away with an exhaust pipe. Takamitchi was shocked that Baji was actually trying to do the right thing, but Draken and Mitsuya didn't see it that way, and Kisaki's bodyguard grabbed Baji by the collar before flinging him away like an insect. Kisaki ordered his men to kill the bastard and Baji was ready for a showdown. But Chifuyu ran up to him and blocked his path, saying that if he defeated Kisaki right now, it would make him an enemy of Mikey and the gang. However, Baji didn't ask for his stupid advice and he punched Chifuyu down, saying that the only reason he had chosen him as a vice captain was because he knew how to fight. But Chifuyu wasn't ready to give up and he said that he would attack him if he didn't back down, so Baji turned around to look at him, saying that he would love to see him try. Baji gave him 10 seconds to prove his worth, but when he ended the countdown, Chifuyu just stood there like a mannequin and allowed Baji to walk away, so Takamitchi ran over to hold him down. He yelled at Chifuyu to help him out, but Chifuyu started crying, saying that he didn't have the balls to hit his superior, and Baji tried knocking Takamitchi out with a hard jab to the head. Takamitchi was slowly becoming unconscious and started seeing visions of Hinata's death in his mind, so he tightened his grip around Baji, but before he knew it, Kazutora appeared from behind and stabbed Baji in the back. He had totally ignored Kazutora's movements while trying to keep Baji safe, so Takamitchi knocked him down before he could do more damage, and Baji thanked him for helping out, saying that the knife had barely harmed him. Baji told him to sit back and watch as he took down Kisaki and all of his men. But Takamitchi said that he and Chifuyu wanted to help out, so Baji punched both of them, saying that he preferred to work alone. He tied his hair into a ponytail to activate his demon mode, before using his exhaust pipe to take down all of the men in Kisaki's division. While Takamitchi watched and marveled at how powerful Baji was, Kisaki told his bodyguard Hamada to get ready because Baji was a crazy-ass warrior. But Baji took down Hamada in a flash, before pointing the sharp edge of his weapon at Kisaki's neck. Takamitchi was shocked that Baji had actually made it this far, and Kisaki dared him to finish the job. But Baji suddenly started coughing up blood and he fell to his knees right in front of Kisaki. Chifuyu ran up to him and he yelled at Kisaki for killing Baji, but Kisaki said that he clearly didn't do anything.
You don't find that suspicious? You don't find that suspicious?
Takamitchi was shocked that Baji had died just like Draken from the future said. And because he wanted Mikey to activate his savage mode, Kisaki called Kazutora a literal backstabber and blamed him for Baji's death. Mikey walked down to meet the psycho, but Hanma blocked his path, saying that the fight wasn't over yet, so Mikey took him down with his nuclear kick, causing the other Valhalla guys to run away in fear. With no one else to stop him, Mikey walked up to Kazutora and kicked him around a few times, before pounding his fist into the killer's face while Draken and the others watched in silence. Takamitchi recalled how Draken had told him about Mikey killing Kazutora during the battle, and he felt bad that he wasn't able to stop it, but Baji shocked everyone by getting up and calling out Mikey's name. He thanked Mikey for getting angry because of him, but Mikey was surprised that he was even still alive, and as blood poured out from his wound, Baji walked up to Kazutora saying that he was too strong to die from a single stab. So to take the blame away from Kazutora, Baji brought out his pocket knife and used it to in front of everyone, causing Chifuyu to yell out in pain and run to his side, asking why he had. Baji told Takamitchi that Kisaki was trying to tear the gang apart, and so he himself to make sure that all of his real friends stayed together. Baji started seeing visions of Mikey's brother and he knew that it was almost time for his isekai, so he apologized to Chifuyu for everything and told Takamitchi to watch over the gang. Before leaving this world in a bright light, Chifuyu cried bitterly about his death, and Mikey went back to beating Kazutora's ass until he saw the light as well. But because he was desperate to change the future, Takamichi blocked his path and told him to stop. Mikey kicked him away and said that he would kill him as well, but Takamichi got back up and called him a violent moron for not knowing that Baji had life just to save their friendship. Seeing a familiar charm on the floor, Mikey walked over to pick it up, and when Takamichi said that it belonged to Baji, Mikey realized that Baji had never actually left the gang in the first place. He flashed back to the time when he and the guys were younger, and after racing each other to their usual meeting spot, Mikey told the guys that Kazutora had been getting bullied by the older students in his neighborhood. Mikey said that he planned on beating up the bullies himself, but Baji suggested that they form a gang instead, with each person having their own positions, so that they could handle these sorts of things as a team. Mikey said that they should call themselves the Tokyo Manji Gang, and although the others thought that his idea was super corny, they agreed to form the coolest gang ever, with Mikey serving as their commander. Baji and the guys decided to buy good luck charms in honor of their new gang, but they were all broke-ass mama's boys, so they joined all their pennies together to buy one single charm. They gave the charm to Baji since he was the one who came up with the idea. And when Mikey stared at the same charm now in the present, he realized that Baji had held on to the good memories ever since. The guys started crying because of Baji's noble sacrifice, and when everyone heard the police sirens, they knew that it was time to bail, but Kazutora said that he was going to stay back and turn himself into the cops. Draken told the boys to get out, but before they left, Kazutora apologized to Mikey for killing both Baji and his brother, and then he quietly allowed the cops to arrest him for his crimes. Weeks after Baji's death, Chifuyu visited his grave to offer prayers, and he remembered how he had met Baji for the first time, back when he was still the strongest guy in school. Chifuyu had his own crew and not even the seniors could take him down. But when his guys told him about a badass student at their school, Chifuyu decided to check him out and teach the punk a lesson. However, when he went over to the next class, he was shocked to see that the so-called tough guy was just a nerdy loser named Baji Keisuke, and Chifuyu wondered why anyone would be scared of him. But after everyone had left the school, Chifuyu returned to find Baji in his classroom, and he realized that despite his glasses and fancy hairdo, the guy was just an idiot who couldn't even spell the simplest words. Baji was pissed because he didn't want to repeat the same class again, so Chifuyu showed him the correct way to write the symbols, and the two of them slowly became good friends. On his way back from school, Chifuyu was ambushed by a gang in his neighborhood, and although Chifuyu was able to fight them back, the guys were getting too much for him to handle. Then out of nowhere, Baji appeared and said that he was going to help him out. But while Chifuyu was scared that he was going to get himself killed, Baji took down the gang leader with a single punch. He introduced himself as the 1st Division captain for the Tokyo Manji gang, and Baji defeated all of them in a matter of seconds while warning the bozos to never attack his friend again. Chifuyu was shocked that Baji was actually a badass warrior like people had said, and that was when he decided to follow his footsteps and become the 1st Division vice captain. Chifuyu became emotional again when he remembered how Baji had died. But then Mikey arrived as well to offer his prayers, and he told Chifuyu to remain strong for the sake of Baji's legacy in the 1st Division. Meanwhile, Draken and Takamichi went to the detention center to visit Kazutora, where he told them that he had been sentenced to 10 years in prison for being involved in Baji's death. Draken advised him to focus on his mental health during that period, and he said that Mikey had forgiven him for everything that happened, and that he was still a part of their gang. After leaving the detention center, Draken told Takamichi that Mikey had something important to tell him at the next gang meeting, and he decided to follow Draken back to his place before going home. However, Takamichi was shocked that Draken lived in the fancy part of town, but when he saw a super hot chick with her buns out, he realized that Draken's apartment was actually a pleasure house. Draken told Takamichi to wait for him in the lobby while he attended to some work, and as he struggled to keep his plot gun from firing, a blonde hottie appeared and pulled Takamichi inside for a good time. She told him to freshen up in the shower in order to set the mood, and as Takamichi prepared himself for the ultimate side quest, the girl took off her plot armor and asked him if she could come in.
Yes! 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 Yes!
But when he opened up the bathroom door, Takamichi was shocked to see Draken instead, and he realized that the girl had taken him as an actual customer when she saw him in the lobby.
No! No! No!
Draken told him that he had lived here ever since he was a young orphan, and when they got into his room, Takamichi was surprised with how cool and mature the place looked. He saw their gang pictures on the wall, and Draken confessed that he had wanted to kill Kazutora as well, but that he was grateful to Takamichi for stopping Mikey during the battle. Leaving Draken's place, Takamichi thought about what he had said while walking down the street, but he was shocked when he saw Emma and Mikey hugging like a couple from a distance. Takamichi was scared that their secret love affair would lead to an apocalyptic battle between Mikey and Draken. But then Hinata appeared dressed up like Sherlock Holmes and she offered to help him solve the mystery. They followed them to an outdoor restaurant, where the two were having a lunch date, and when Hinata noticed the glow in Emma's eyes, she knew that her friend was now in love with Mikey. However, Takamichi glanced at two large clues on her chest and got punched in the face by Hinata. But then Yama arrived to join the fun and he said that he heard rumors about the secret couple as well. Using her detective skills, Hinata concluded that Emma was for the streets, so she walked over to confront them. And at the same time, Draken arrived like a supervillain to kill Mikey for betraying him. Takamichi tried stopping him from starting World War III, but Draken walked up to their table and paused a bit before teasing Mikey for hanging out with his little sister on her birthday. He told the others that Mikey and Emma were actually step-siblings, and while Takamichi was shocked by the news, Detective Hinata and her crew pretended to order something from the menu to avoid getting caught. Draken gave Emma a pink teddy bear as her birthday present, and all the guys worshipped him like a Giga Chad as he walked away, while Emma blushed and hugged her gift like a little girl. On the way back, Hinata said that he wished for Emma and Draken to fall in love just like the both of them, and they ran off into the sunset, leaving Naoto and Yama alone with no hands to hold. Later that night, Takamichi got a call from Mitsuya, so he went over to visit him at his school the next morning. But while he was waiting for him outside, Pei arrived to show him around instead. They went to the home economics classroom, and after a mean girl yelled at Pei for having a terrible fashion sense, Mitsuya arrived to bring them in, and Takamichi realized that he was the president of the sewing club. Mitsuya made a custom jacket for Takamichi to thank him for saving the gang on numerous occasions, and because he had never received such a thing in his worthless life, Takamichi bowed his head down to thank him. He debuted his jacket at the next meeting, and Draken formally welcomed him as a member of the gang. But Takamichi was shocked when he saw Mikey arriving with Hanma and Chifuyu by his side. The other members were surprised as well, but Mikey allowed Hanma to address the crowd, and he said that because of their defeat during the Halloween battle, the entire Valhalla crew was now officially under the Tokyo Manji gang. The guys were excited because it meant that their gang would get bigger, but when Hanma said that it was Kisaki who made the alliance possible, Takamichi knew that the future was still gonna to be screwed. And while he was losing his mind for failing the mission yet again, Mikey said that there was still something very important to talk about, and he left the floor open for Chifuyu to address the gang. Chifuyu said that it was time for them to appoint a new captain for the 1st Division, and although it was naturally meant to be him, Mikey had given him the right to select anyone that he wanted. And to everyone's surprise, Chifuyu said that he chose Takamichi because that was what Baji would have wanted. But Takamichi wondered how a worthless loser like him could possibly handle such a high position. However, when he remembered all the lives that were at stake and how he had promised Naoto that he would become the next leader of the gang, Takamichi started crying, and he accepted the offer with his head up high. He went over to shake Naoto and jump back to the present, but when Takamichi opened up his eyes, he found himself in the same old rental shop like nothing had changed. However, his boss greeted him with a friendly smile, and that was when Takamichi realized that he had finally cheated the leveling system and transformed himself into a Gucci-wearing grip god. Yes, sir! The store clerk apologized for not having the movie that he wanted, and when Takamichi stepped outside, he met his assistant who had been waiting patiently for them to drive off in his blacked-out sports car. Takamichi was confused throughout the entire ride. But when the car stopped at his house, he noticed some familiar faces and realized that his so-called assistant was actually Yama in the present. He recognized his other friends as well, and when Takamichi took the elevator to the top floor, he met up with Chifuyu, who told him that he was now the CEO of Tokyo Manji Industries. They went over to the restaurant to meet with the industry board members, and Takamichi was eager to uncover all of the gang's dirty secrets, but he couldn't find Naoto's number anywhere on his phone. Pa and the others started arguing about the horrible food, and Takamichi was glad to see that they were all still together. But then some new cats on the board told the old men to shut their asses up and just eat. Takamichi wondered where the new guys came from, and Chifuyu said that they were formerly members of the Black Dragon gang. But Pa was already pissed, and he threw his chair at the wall before walking away. Hanma told him to sit back down because they had something very important to discuss, and Takamichi was annoyed that Hanma always existed in every single reality that he made. Hanma said that there was someone amongst them who was giving intel to the cops about their illegal businesses, and everyone started arguing about who the actual traitor was. While they were fighting, Kisaki walked into the room and all the board members bowed their heads to greet him, but Kisaki told Takamichi and Chifuyu to join him for a private meeting. Takamichi noticed that Kisaki was a lot nicer than before, and he wondered if the gang had actually turned rogue in this timeline. But then Kisaki suddenly asked them if they hated him. However, Takamichi and Chifuyu didn't even know what to say, so Kisaki surprised them by confessing that he was the one who made the plans for Baji's murder during the Halloween battle many years ago. And although Takamichi already knew this, he was shocked that Kisaki would actually come clean about such a crime, but Kisaki explained that he was really desperate for power back in the days. He bowed his head down and apologized to them, saying that he had regretted his actions ever since that day, after which they raised a toast to Baji's legacy and the success of their company. But then minutes later, Kisaki told the guys that he had spiked their drinks with sleeping pills, and when the both of them finally woke up, they realized that he had tied them against the chairs. Kisaki started beating up Chifuyu while asking him if he was the one who had ratted them out to the feds, and when he couldn't take it anymore, Chifuyu said that he had done it because he wanted to rid the gang of scumbags like him. Takamichi was shocked that Chifuyu still held a grudge against Kisaki for killing Baji after all these years. But Kisaki didn't trust him as well, and he used his pistol to shoot a bullet straight into Takamichi's leg. He pointed the pistol at Chifuyu's forehead, telling him to say his final words. So Chifuyu told Takamichi that the gang had changed a lot in the last few years and that it was up to him to set things right. Kisaki sent him to gangster heaven with a headshot, and Takamichi couldn't believe that Chifuyu had just died right in front of him. But Kisaki pointed the gun at him as well, and he pulled the trigger to end everything. Set your heart ablaze, go beyond your limits, and watch this next video.